Just got to turn YouTube on and turn on one recording. All right, we're good. Oh. All right. Hey, everyone. Welcome to the New Media Show. My name is Todd Cochran. Of course, we're happy to have you with us today. Hey, Rob, how you doing?
I'm doing fine, Todd. How are you doing? It's T-minus time to Christmas here in the U.S.
And I have absolutely done no shopping. So, yeah.
I think a lot of people just do all their shopping on Amazon these days.
Yeah,
so,
and right. Unfortunately, I started too late. So I have an idea, and I have a small list I have to buy for, so I will be probably doing that today. I don't know, maybe tomorrow. I don't know. We'll see. But I've got to do some sun duty today. I've got to do some running, take my mom, do some running around. But other than that, we're good. It's Saturday morning. It's time for the New Media Show.
Right. Yeah.
But I don't know how your week was, but podcasters are still in afterburner mode. It's
oh yeah.
It hasn't slowed down a bit.
No, it hasn't. It hasn't, and it's all good. Everything's firing on so many different cylinders right now. So, which is, it's good. It's good. But I mean, for us, Todd, we kind of take I would imagine with you as well, is that, we've been in this medium for so long that it's in some ways it makes me worried, and a little bit from the standpoint is that it's really easy to kind of get complacent, I guess, a little bit, or kind of think back, well, we've seen this before, or what is. I mean, I think a good example of it was pointed out to me. I had posted my complete article of my thoughts on 2020 and my thoughts of 2021, and it was pointed out in that message to me that I had left off any commentary on podcasting 2.0,
which I didn't forget.
I know, and I just wanted to correct that perception. I mean, I had written that article before I had really realized the significance of what Adam Curry was doing over there. Really, I had written that mostly like 2 or 3 months ago, but really what it pointed out to be is that, sometimes you can be a little skeptical of new things, right?
Yeah.
Especially when we've been around this medium so long and we've seen so many new things kind of come and go. And I think that the immediate reaction to things like what's going on with that podcasting 2.0 and things like that is to think that maybe that's going to come and go too.
Yeah.
Whether or not that actually happens, I think one of the things that really pointed out to me is that I need to be a little bit more open-minded about things like that and their significance. But I do realize that the landscape, and I think last week's show was a good indication of that. The landscape of podcasting is different now.
Yeah.
And so as we look to the future, these reactions that we're seeing in the marketplace, like what Adam Curry's doing, is happening for a reason right now. I think that the podcasting, as well as maybe how sometimes I think of this medium, is a little stagnant. And maybe, and I think we've faced this criticism in the past on this show of holding on to the past a little bit more than maybe we should, and think more about how things could be. And I think, that starts to dawn on us. And I think one example of that also is the attribution stuff, the privacy stuff, things like that we hold on to pretty tightly. But there's many in this industry that don't, so, right. Who's right? I don't know. So some of these issues you just, I think my big picture is just, having an open mind, more, which is what I used to have more of. And I don't know what you think of those thoughts, but that kind of pointed out a little bit of a hole in my vision. And,
well, you're not alone, but I'm the challenge I have I probably have some team members that think that the Adam Curry initiative is just, a flash in the pants, and it's not going to last. And I hate to the podcast 2.0 initiative has gotten a hell of a lot of head steam. It's moving, and here's the challenge.
Well, Todd, you have access to it. I mean, I was looking at it yesterday too, and I noticed that they have a document that I think it's in the GitHub area,
right?
That kind of outlines each of the new RSS tags, right? That they're pushing forward with, and it shows the platforms that are adopting them,
right?
And I think more and more we're seeing, platforms like ours, yours. I think, I wanted to mention this. Libsyn is going to support submitting over to the Podcast Index at some point here, and I know you have already done that, I believe.
Right.
And I know that's important, but I don't know if you have access to that document, but it actually shows all of the platforms that are supporting those tags right now. And I think it's important to keep an eye on that.
Well, exactly. So, and I think what it is too is I fully understand the challenge that they are up against in getting wide adoption. But 5 or 6 of those tags that they adopted were tags that we put out in the marketplace more than 10 years ago.
Right.
And because it was a Blueberry initiative, they never got no traction.
Right.
None. And now that everyone's, this is for the podcast, and they changed some stuff up a little bit. So it's fine, but they used a source to come up with several ideas. Now, that's the hottest thing going. And really what it boils down to is the reason we didn't have, it's just the same thing we've talked about on this show before, our Subscribe on Android initiative, which still is rocking, is because it was a Blueberry thing. We couldn't adopt that because that's going to make it look like we're making Blueberry look good because it was in our bailiwick. So I'm really excited about what's going on. I think that they're moving fast. I mean, really fast. Unlike anything I've seen in a long time. And they're just doing it. Now, the bigger challenge will be is how much adoption of how many tags and by who. And I have a pretty good idea in my brain based upon what I'm seeing by participation in developers over there. I think there's 9 podcast companies that are involved in discussions over there now. They're all indie based.
Right.
There's no other platforms that are being, no other syndication platforms. But the point I like to make is we don't need them. These are tools for podcasters, largely tools for podcasters, not for podcast hosting companies. So those of us that have directories and that type of stuff, there's all kinds of cool stuff in there that they're doing. And I think that even on my team, I probably have a few people that think that it's not going to last. And if I wait long enough, then it'll go away and I can ignore it. But that's not, I'm trying to, be very proactive and make my team understand this is, we've picked some things that we're going to implement, but just like everyone else, I gotta, it's, even though I've got a pretty good dev team, there is, not a pretty good, an awesome dev team. I got 5,000 line items of stuff that has to be done. And where do you set the priorities on coding? The challenge, and I like I'm just like the next person. I'm like the next podcaster. I like the little shining object that's moving in the water.
Right.
That fishing lure. Wow, look at that one. I have the same susceptibility to flashing new things. And so I get excited about it, but yet I can't redirect what we've already said is a priority if I had unlimited, Rob, you guys got unlimited resources. You could add 2 or 3 more devs and just to go after this and adopt it all, but I don't have unlimited, you laugh, but you do. You guys, compared to everyone else, you guys should be able to hire like 3 people just to put on this.
Right. Well, it does get back to your recognition, I guess, of the impact of where you put your time, right?
Yeah.
And where you put your energy, right? Is feeding, taking dev time and feeding stuff over to the podcast index, is that going to move the needle in a significant way in the short run? I don't know. That's the question, right?
The submitting to podcast index is just that to me is actually the low impact.
That's the smallest part.
No,
right?
It's literally no impact, because they're going to find the shows on Apple Podcasts if we don't. They're going to get in there.
Well, then they populated the catalog from the Apple APIs originally anyway. Yeah. So actually, in some ways, they're presenting new challenges, which is duplication, right?
And hopefully, I think they've built in some protections on that. But I think the main thing, though, is the other work that's going on.
Yeah, it's the RSS.
The RSS stuff is, and all right. So I'm just going to tell you, those of you that are listening, if you're a dev or you work for a podcasting company and you're not on podcastindex.social and following along what's going on, don't be surprised when something comes out and you're getting pissed off because how it's implemented. Because if you didn't get in there and put your 2 cents worth in, they're going to say, hey, you didn't participate. Here's what we decided, and here's what we're doing. We're moving forward. So basically, it's kind of like when you're, a wedding, and the preacher says, does anyone object to this wedding? Or forever hold your peace, right? One of those types of deals. Well, it's like the podcasting thing. You get in there and submit your considerations and contribute to the discussion, or shut up. You have no say. You can't complain later.
And just accept what comes out of it.
Right? Yeah. So, but
it's Todd. It's like what we've been saying all along of why we needed a kind of like a trade organization that could pull committees together to work on various parts of the ecosystem of podcasting to innovate and upgrade and those kind of things.
They've done this. They're doing that, and basically they're saying we can't wait for the bureaucracy of a committee. And it's true.
It's true.
The bureaucracy of a committee is. You look at a lot of the work. Oh my God! You look at the work we've done recently on some other stuff, and it's like one word. Is this word okay to remove? One word.
Yeah, but Todd, that's also how you build consensus too. I mean, it's done that way generally for a reason too.
Yeah.
So you avoid rogue things that go off that it isn't what's in the maybe more broader interest of the community.
Slow.
It is
slow.
Right.
Hey, we've got a ton of people on Facebook. Make sure you say hi this morning. We want to know who you are. Just say hi. Don't be shy. Go ahead and give a shout out. Just say, hey, I'm watching the show. Thanks for doing this. Or maybe you're bored. But let's. I think it's the biggest, in my opinion, the biggest story of the year from a movement standpoint is the expansion and what they're doing. And I'm glad Adam is in penny for a pound. I think he looks at this project as his sealing his long-term legacy in the space. And in being that he got podcasting off the ground. We're here because of him and Dave Weiner. And now he's going to say, okay, those of you that have listened to the show for a while, that in 2005, when Apple Podcasts, or at the time iTunes, introduced podcasting, absolutely all innovation stopped. It stopped right there. It ended from a podcast syndication standard. It stopped. That was it. And nothing.
Well, there's a variety of reasons why that happened.
But still, it stopped. Yeah. And nothing has happened for 16 years. Now, Apple, but what has driven change? Apple has driven the change. Apple has driven adoption of new tags. Apple has driven so much stuff that we have acquiesced to Apple in basically building this space and providing new tools for podcasters. And what do we want podcasters to do? We want them to build audiences. We want to have great promotion of content. We want to have the ability to potentially monetize in a different type of way, micropayments, maybe something along with some sort of Bitcoin or something to that effect. And in the end, the advertisers in the space have largely double flipped off 95% of all podcasters out there by not providing advertising, not even considering them for advertising, and focused on the 5, 6, 7, 8% top shows. And, try to get an ad deal where you have a show that has 1,000 downloads on it to make significant money without going through some programmatic BS that runs a diaper.
That's what everybody's pushing now.
Right.
I mean, if you look at the discussion in the medium right now, it's like the future is programmatic and everybody's all excited about it. I saw a variety of articles this past week coming out touting the future of programmatic is the solution for podcast advertising.
It's not. Absolutely not.
And it's misguided. It's missing what the primary method of advertising that works in this medium.
They want it to work because guess what it is?
It's easier.
No, it's millions, hundreds of millions of dollars to the companies that implement it if they can make it work. But we're already seeing performance is absolutely,
Well, I do agree with the premise that it's not the technology that's the problem necessarily. It's the implementation that is the problem. Right. I'm hoping that can be solved, but I've just been a little skeptical of the programmatic implementation because it's gotten such a growing bad reputation because of its methodology in relation to how it's actually implemented. Not so much the dynamic insertion is somehow always bad. It's not. It's how the podcaster is involved in the process. It's how the ad creative is created. Those are the metrics.
Right.
And at the end of the day, that's kind of a lot about control.
True.
And that's really, I think, if you cut it back to just the core of the struggle that's going on here, is about what's efficient, what's real time, and control over the advertising message. The agencies want to have deeper control of the ad message because they think that they know what's best, and to hand over the keys to some podcaster to do a value-laden representation of their brand is something that they've been very nervous of.
Right.
Yeah.
So I just think that the team that's working over there has to be commended for this. They've got a long uphill climb, and I fully am aware of that. But anyone that is discounting them and considering that this is just a fool's errand, it's probably in for a rude awakening. The podcasting space is moving very quickly, and I try to.
Todd, have you seen that list of the companies that are supporting the tags?
Yeah.
So far, yeah. It's a mix of listening apps as well as some podcast hosting platforms.
That's right.
But most of them are small at this point. But you have to start somewhere, obviously. So I'm not discounting what they're doing based on the size of the platform.
There's a very big platform in there.
Yeah, there is Buzzsprout, right?
Right.
And they've been pretty aggressive. I have to
That's
give
right.
them credit. And that's, I definitely took notice of that, and that's something that I wouldn't say was a big factor in Lipson's decision to try and get involved. I was pushing for that. I've been pushing for that in the company for a couple of months now. But it's also, getting credibility inside the company, and I believe that's probably what's going on with other hosting platforms as well. Is trying to look at the big picture and say, is this going to be something that's going to get traction that we need to support? I think Lipson is sitting in a kind of a unique position to support it as well because of our destination strategy that we have, of being able to support tags going into that index, and then having, I think where it gets a little tough, I guess, is that if you have a listening platform, right, that's supporting those tags, and we don't have a destination relationship with those listening platforms because they're small or whatever. The question is that something that you're going to put into your regular classic RSS feed? Like, Todd, are you going to have those tags available in your feeds that go everywhere?
Well, remember, we have a destination strategy of having a single RSS feed.
I know, exactly.
Not having 20.
But that's a little different, right, than what Lipson is doing.
And what our podcasters can do is turn on or turn off
various tags.
Tags.
Right.
Right.
Okay.
That's up to them on what they want turned on and turned off. So
Apple could pick up those tags if they decided to at some point.
If they, I doubt they will. Some of them are no use to them. Some of those tags are absolutely no use to Apple.
Right.
Unless they're going to adapt some of that technology into their app, or, some of those tags there's no reason for them. That's the thing I'm trying to get across here.
Right.
A lot of this work that's being done is for the podcaster on their podcast page.
Right. Not so much just for the big platforms.
Right. Now, there's some cool stuff that the big platforms could adopt. Could.
And is this really, I think at the end of the day, this is really kind of a road or a path to innovation in the space, that maybe there's things that those platforms will embrace in the future.
So, and I think what you have to do is, if you guys get on board, then what everyone else is going to go. So, let's be frank. Between you and Buzzsprout, you guys are the two biggest. Mm-hmm. So, if you guys get on board, Podbean will be very quickly behind.
Right.
We've already committed, but, we're also looking at what, stage committal.
Right.
So, if 5 of us have adopted a significant number of these tags over the next year, I think then, all the other 20, the 20 other competitors are out there.
Right.
They have and here's the opportunity. If you're a smaller company and you're trying to figure out how to differentiate yourself, they could go hog wild and this could be a focus, and they could use it as a marketing tool against all of us. So,
right.
We support all the podcasting 2.0 tags, and here are the things.
Right.
Oh, by the way, Blueberry doesn't have it, Libsyn doesn't have it, Podbean doesn't have it, Buzzsprout maybe will have it. Who knows? Right. So then the peer pressure factor,
right?
Or competitive pressure comes in.
I think it's more competitive pressure, right?
Yeah.
I mean, none of us wants to be seen by new and existing podcasters as not innovating, right, and not supporting the latest and greatest tags
but there's also other things. You guys are doing stuff I don't know about. I'm doing things that you don't know about,
right?
And because we're always thinking, what's going to be the next cool feature that, quite frankly, is going to drive sales.
Right.
Why are people going to
differentiation is
why are people going
always
to why are people going to come over and do business with me versus doing business with someone else?
Right.
And this
that's
situation
good. That's good for the marketplace.
And
too.
this situation is more of a, I'm not going to say a race to adoption, but we're going to find out very, very quickly which tags are going to have some stickiness to them. So it might be okay to wait just a little bit to see where the headwinds are.
Well, that's a big reason why, we didn't jump in originally too, is that we wanted to get a little bit of distance on this and see if a few other players in the medium were starting to perk up and jump on board.
Right.
For the same reason that I started out this episode with the skepticism of based on what we've seen in the past.
Yeah, because there's been a lot of stuff that's been started and died.
Right. And that's just the way things go. Yeah. There's nothing necessarily bad about that. It's just, some things get traction, some things don't. And, I would hate to put a lot of energy in the company into something that, a month from now kind of faded out.
Yeah, so, I don't.
Right.
Yeah.
It wouldn't look good.
I just, if you're not listening, please don't listen to the Podcast 2.0 podcast. Please don't listen. Yeah, don't listen.
With your competitive hat on.
Yeah, don't listen. Please, don't listen to that show. I don't think any podcast host should be subscribed to that show.
Todd, have you noticed also a real uptick in podcasts about podcasting these days? There's been a lot.
I haven't been tracking it too much
lately. There's a lot more of them lately.
What is that a sign of?
It's a sign of there's a lot of podcast consultants out there that are trying to build their reputation.
Well, what I will say that there's a lot of podcasters that are frustrated.
Podcasters or podcast consultants?
Podcasters.
Okay, got it. Yeah, no, I agree with you.
Because they get a mixed message. Let me. I screenshotted this morning. What I do in the mornings, I kind of was laying on the couch, and in my pajamas. I don't wear pajamas. And I saw. I'm not going to name the podcaster's name, but it was posted in a Facebook forum, and again, I don't want to make this person feel bad if they listen to the show, but here's the statement. Hello, everyone. Smiley face. I have a podcast with 6 episodes so far. How should I go about earning money? And there's a 77, so far, well, at the time, there was 77 responses to that question. Mm-hmm. And the gal is out of work. She needs to earn some money, and I appreciate her trying to figure out how to make it happen. That's always good. Yeah. But there is an expectation I continue to see, not only in the consulting calls that I do, but podcasters are really right now wanting to try to monetize very, 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 very early. And
programmatic is a little bit to blame here on that, right?
I would think so. But, it's when you ask a person their numbers and they tell you, and you tell them what that's actually going to equal to in dollars and cents, then they kind of go, oh, you mean I'm going to get 50 cents for 8 episodes? Or I'm going to get $1.25 for running ads in my show?
Yeah.
It changes a little bit as the show gets bigger, so, that it's purely in most ad deals, not all. It's just a matter of scale. Now, if you've got something, I talked to someone the other day that had a really, really unique idea. And I said, wow, when you get this off the ground, I want the opportunity to sell against that, because I think we can sell that for a major amount of money. I don't think, it's not going to be like a $25 CPM. I'm thinking it's going to be like a, $600,000, $700,000, $800,000 an episode type of sponsorship. regardless of the size of the audience. You could have 100 and still charge that much based on the content.
Mm-hmm.
Because he does something unique, and I'm like, whoa, so, but those types of shows are 1 in 1,000. I hear the train, Rob. They didn't blow the horn. So I don't know. I think that we're in a time here where podcasters want their shows to grow, and we get to give them tools to make them grow. Harold is on. He said, "Good morning, gentlemen. I'm glad to hear the hosting sites still see their customers is the podcaster, not the directories." Yeah, absolutely. The directories.
Oh,
yeah. Always, absolutely.
I don't think we've ever viewed the listening platforms as our customers.
No, never.
There's no economic relationship there.
No.
So how would they be, right?
No.
So, right.
And I did get a few emails last week, or actually this morning. Please do not say my name on the show. Talking about the our incentivizing discussion we had on the last podcast.
Oh, yeah.
Some people are like, whoa, So, there's lots of ways to move the barrel here for everybody, but.
Yeah, that's true. Did you see the lead article on Pod News? I think it was yesterday. About Netflix is going audio only mode in their Android app. Did you hear that?
Why is that?
Somehow that's a threat to podcasting. I'm not sure it is, but
I'm not watching TV shows on audio only on Netflix. Come on. That's the stupidest thing ever. Why would they do that?
Well, there's been a history, Todd, I don't know if you remember, but there were radio stations in the past, years and years ago, that would play live television on the radio. So,
but that was like in the 40s, Rob, when they were.
No, it wasn't. It was back in the 70s and 80s.
Okay.
Right.
Well, I hadn't read Pod News from yesterday. It's still in my unread. I'm opening it up now.
Yeah. So I guess it's an Android app only feature, right? So you'd be able to just listen to the audio of a TV show, which I guess you could have done that all along anyway. It's not gonna play the video part of it, but there's no reason why you couldn't have played the video and just listened to the audio. So I'm not sure that this is really all that significant of a feature. It's not like it's going to be downloadable content or something like that. So yeah.
Steve Henn wonders if independent podcasting has peaked.
Independent podcasting has peaked?
He wonders if independent podcasting has peaked. The truth is that the old business model embraced by independent podcasters isn't sustainable, especially if you're trying to do ambitious, rigorous journalism. Sorry.
What?
Most podcasters are not doing rigorous journalism.
Well, and it's also really most of the most popular podcasts are independent. I think it depends on how you define independent. I think that's a word that's kind of I guess misconstrued a lot around what the definition of a corporate podcaster is and an independent podcaster is. And I think those lines are getting a little blurry. And it's been getting that way more and more lately.
Or could it be that this is another ambitious attempt to lock up podcasting?
Yeah. Right. And somehow that term independent is oftentimes used in a derogatory reference to a particular segment of the community, and it really isn't. There's terrific podcasts that are out there that are part of big corporate networks, but I would still consider them to be independents.
He says podcasters have never created universally recognized open standards like the web. We haven't effectively pushed tech platforms to evolve and serve creators. For most podcasters, there's only one to make a living, sell ads. Well, obviously, he's not aware of what's going on over the Podcast 2.0 initiatives.
Yeah, it's not a one-dimensional medium, and I think it's, for those that haven't been around the medium and don't understand it in a deep level, I suppose they could have that impression, right? That it's advertising only, and that's the only benefit structure that comes out of podcasting, and that's just a misunderstanding of the medium.
Here's another statement that he says. The truth is that the old business model embraced by independent podcasters isn't sustainable, especially if you're trying to do ambitious, rigorous journalism. Many big successful podcasts can't pay their bills with ad dollars alone, and supporting sustainable local journalism in a digital ad-driven environment is increasingly impossible. Well,
yeah,
newspapers are going out of business for a reason.
Right.
And as much as you want to be local, there's hardly any local anymore, regardless. And local is not a fast-growing segment in the podcasting space. So
people aren't consuming local content as much as they used to, and if that's the case, I mean, it's the chicken or the egg, right?
Yep.
Is there local content to be consumed? Obviously, is going to drive lower consumption of that. I know that there's a new initiative that's starting up called, I think it's called CityCast.
Yeah.
That's a podcasting platform that's being launched by one of the original founders of the Slate podcasting network. Is starting to work on that. Actually, I'm going to do a call with them just to see what they're doing. But I do wonder, Todd, if the number of podcast listeners is growing, right?
Yeah.
And once it reaches a certain saturation of the population, is there local opportunities, more growing local opportunities for local content?
Here's the thing that cracks me up, too. He's woefully underinformed. What's missing in the audio space today are platforms that empower podcasts to makers to build membership communities and make it easier for podcasters to sell their own subscriptions. Today's biggest platforms are not designed to help podcasters build and strengthen their audiences in their communities. It's not up to the platforms to build their communities. Right. It's up to the podcaster to do that themselves on their own websites. It's not the platform's responsibility. We do provide the ability so you can do a membership system.
Right.
We do provide this to me is like they're telling us we have to do that.
Right.
And then he goes on to say, what's missing is the ability of a publisher to create rich interactive experience and distribute it on any app or any smart speaker. YouTube does not have a rich interactive experience. YouTube is a content platform that puts out video. Most of it crap, some good.
Right.
All right. And podcasting, it's an audio medium. It's not an interactive medium. Now, there are offshoots.
Right.
Like in the true crime space, they all get on YouTube. They do YouTube Live, and everyone's in the community, and they're all talking about cases. And then there's a podcast that goes along with it. Right. So they are interacting and building communities.
Well, it's like these new apps that are forming, Chalk and Clubhouse. They are building interactive audio formatted programs, right?
Yeah.
I think on Clubhouse, it would be hard to actually say those are podcasts in the traditional sense.
But it's up to you. It's up to the podcaster to grow an audience, build a community, build that interactivity. And most podcasters don't want to do that.
Yeah, they just want to record.
They want to record,
push it out,
Right. And those that do, those that actively build across many platforms and get this interactivity and so for me, it's really blows me away, this particular article. And it's on Neiman Lab of all sites. predictions for journalism for 2021, and it talks about podcasting. So the
depends on what you view, Todd. I mean, let's be frank about it. I mean, journalism like NPR, or journalism like CNN or some of these other ones is a different kind of journalism.
That's not journalism. That's entertainment.
Well, yeah.
There is no journalism left on television. And
right. Well, yeah. I mean, I'm not talking about necessarily television. I'm talking about what those media companies are producing in podcasts. It's content that's highly produced, has a team behind them. It's different than what a typical independent podcaster would do. Right. Though I would say, Todd, and you would agree with me that there are many individuals out there that may be associated with a big media company that are doing independent podcasts. Right. They're building teams around their programs, and they are not really affiliated with a major company. Or just because talent comes from a big media company doesn't necessarily mean that they're not an independent podcaster. So that's why I get a little bit of it's this pigeonholing of this medium that somehow is unfair to various players in it.
So Mike says most journalists are not doing rigorous journalism. I agree. I think journalism in America is dead. I think it's dead.
Well, what is journalism, Todd?
It's
at its core of what it is. I think for many years, journalism was thought of something that was separate from any kind of economic oriented benefit, right?
or purely for the benefit of one political party or another.
Well, it's all about money, Todd. It's all about audience equals money. Just like podcasting, right? If you can build an audience, you're going to make more money. Well, that's exactly what journalism has turned into, right? You build an audience, you're going to make more money. Well, guess what we've created is these journalism sites are concerned about audience. So what do? They create content that caters to what people want to hear, not what they don't want to hear.
Or I'll leave my comments at that point. Or I'm going to say something's going to piss people off.
As long as we keep it kind of high level, I think we're okay. But I think at the core, journalism today is entertainment.
Oh, absolutely.
Just like what you've been saying, Todd, and I agree 100%. Because those companies now are bottom line driven.
Yeah. It's toxic entertainment is what it is.
Well, yeah. It tends to play into division, but I also think that those divisions are there.
Here's Todd's prediction for 2021, if I didn't say it on the last show. Podcasting is the last bastion of free speech.
Oh, yeah, right. Yeah, I think we said that in the last episode. But, yeah, I think you're right. Yeah.
And freedom of expression.
About that a lot. Yeah,
although,
about that a lot too.
Although, when does cancel culture attack podcasting?
I don't know.
Or podcasters?
Well, it depends on where the attacks come from. I think that the attacks have come from audiences for years now. That's where the attacks come from. Is it going to be more from a platform perspective?
There is a risk now with the way society is. Let's say you're doing a conservative podcast and you're hardcore, and you work at an organization that may not be aligned that way. If you say something wrong, you might lose your job.
Well, Todd, there are plenty of media companies that are on both sides of this, right? It's not just one side beating up the other side.
I'm not talking about companies. Right. I'm talking about individuals. I'm talking about Joe Q podcaster that works at company X in some city doing a show.
Mm-hmm.
So what you may end up finding is people are going to start adopting pseudonyms of their names. They're not going to use their real name creating shows. They're going to build a personality just in order to protect themselves. Someone still can do a lot of research and figure out who somebody is over time, but makes it a little more difficult. Harold says when it comes,
Todd, go ahead, Todd.
He says, when it comes to new people anxious to get into podcasting to make a living quickly, an option may be to work for a mature, established podcast to understand and learn the field first. That's always a possibility, but usually those teams are built internally, and it's for a podcaster to get involved would be difficult. They might be able to observe or volunteer to do something. I'm not sure, but
yeah. I mean, I just wonder how podcasting is going to be affected as you look to the future with the political division that exists. Is it going to get significantly impacted by?
I think it's going to get worse, because I think, again, going back to cancel culture, I really think it's going to be a problem. But I'm glad I don't do a political show.
I mean, when does it end, or does it end, or does it just keep getting more and more extreme?
It doesn't end. Not at this point. You look at what's going on TikTok, it's not going to end.
Oh, on TikTok? Yeah, I'm not really monitoring TikTok that much.
TikTok is where all the breaking real news is.
Really?
Absolutely.
All places. I thought that was a place that was the bastion of dance videos.
There's that, and lots of TNA, I guess is the better word to say it. There's a bastion of that, but if you get, there is, you flip through 10 videos real quick, and all of a sudden you're seeing somebody with a camera having recorded something that you're like, where was that on the news? And it won't ever get reported on the news.
Right.
Or comments said, or stuff that was picked up on C-SPAN, stuff that's just, all over the place. When is the last time you saw, again, I'm not watching mainstream media.
Yeah.
Because it's so toxic. But when was the last time you saw on mainstream media anything being reported out of C-SPAN? It's, again, a lot of stuff is being hidden. The message is we're being manipulated.
Well, is it real manipulation?
I believe so.
Or that these media creators are catering to an audience that want to hear certain things?
Yeah, probably true. Especially, not necessarily in podcasting, but in mainstream media for sure.
I mean, and look at what's happening on Facebook and those platforms. Hey, we talked about this early on in the podcast, in the technology development in the early days of how wonderful personalization was going to be, right?
Right.
Well, this has come back to roost.
That's true
on us.
And I think
personalization is isolation of views.
Well, at the same time, though, I think podcasters and podcast audiences are trusted to form their own opinion and make judgment calls on the content that they're listening to in an objective way.
Right.
And I think we've largely, and this is maybe society in general, and maybe I'm wrong, but I think, I know some people, older than me, that all they get their information from is one source. And they swear this is truth. Absolute, unmitigated, absolute truth.
No matter what side, right?
Right, no matter what side, yeah. And they don't have exposure beyond the bloob tube. They're not on YouTube listening to people having discussions. They're not on TikTok hearing discussions. They're not listening to podcasts where there are discussions.
Mm-hmm. And
in an objective where you can't yell at them way,
right?
So again, it goes back to my statement stands. Podcasting is the last bastion of free speech and diversity of content. And if you want to have an open mind and understand stuff, you should. I listen to a lot of podcasts, so I hear stuff all the time makes you go, huh? And then I might investigate that a little bit. And I don't think...
Todd, I think one of the biggest challenges that we have, though, is individuals. Sure, we can We can have free thought and free decision-making ability. That's always been the case. But it's getting harder and harder to know what's fact and what's fiction. And that's where we run into this gray area.
I don't agree with that. I don't think people are that stupid.
I'm not saying that they're stupid.
Well,
I'm just saying that there's tools now, Todd, and you know about this, where you can fake a video.
Of course.
You can take a video image and you can change the words coming out of that video image's mouth, right?
Yeah.
So we're coming into a time when everything can be manipulated, can be portrayed as something that it's not, and it's going to be increasingly more and more difficult for an individual to know what is true and what is false. That's the fallout from technology.
There is a saying that, and it started from the GPS years. So you remember when you heard the early days of GPS, people were driving off bridges and cliffs and, like
there's consequences.
The GPS says there's a road here. There has to be
I'm not paying attention, especially with autonomous vehicles.
There has to be a road there. The GPS says there's a road, right?
Yeah.
And this also is something as a holdover from the aviation industry that I was involved in. We would have these big, thick. They were 500-page manuals of the do's and don'ts in operating an aircraft.
Right.
But at the very beginning of the book, there was this paragraph. This manual does not constitute a substitution for common sense.
Yeah.
So if the instrument says you're climbing, but you're looking at the ground coming at you, well, you're not climbing. But if you believe your instruments that you're climbing, you might drive into the ground.
Right. Or fly into a mountain or whatever it might be. Right.
So we have to remember today, from a common sense perspective, that I look at everything with I don't I'll just tell you, I don't believe shit. I don't believe anything. And if something comes out of someone's mouth, I'm like, really? Really?
No, I get that. No, I
really?
100% agree with that.
Right. Really, especially if it's on a TV.
Right.
If it's coming out of a podcaster's mouth, then it just makes you go, you get that little twerk, your head moves a little bit, and you got to go, did that really happen? And then it's up to you. It's up to you.
Right. Yeah.
To use a little common sense and put a little self-doubt in there. Do you really think people are that gullible, Rob, that they are being completely manipulated?
I don't know. It gets back to, I don't know. That's the problem.
Yeah.
And Todd, your background, being out of, the military and intelligence.
Yeah,
right?
what I was involved with, right.
You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, absolutely.
Governments play games.
Right? I look at everything that comes out of the government's mouth with a...
Yeah, what's the real motivation
No.
here?
What it is...
Right.
They said this, but what was the spin? How did they spin to get to here?
Right.
And, it's...
And Todd, I come out of, I used to work for Microsoft. I saw how the PR stuff worked, because I got pulled into it. So I totally get this game that is going on.
Yeah.
But I'll also say, in kind of contribution to what you're saying, is that what it's forcing us all to be as individuals is we're now the ones that are becoming journalists.
Exactly.
And the journalists have advocated their responsibility.
They have.
Because they're now focused on entertainment.
That's right.
Right?
Because they know if they talk about X story, they're going to lose listenership because that's not the narrative.
Right. They're operating from a perspective
right.
of, we're going to talk about things that the vast majority of the audience wants to hear.
That's right.
Right? And that's what's going to grow our bottom line.
And it's a self-serving, destructive spin cycle that is sickening.
Right. And unfortunately, it's over the last few years, it's really catered towards pharmaceutical companies because those are the ones that have been funding a lot of television over the last few years.
So are you going to say anything bad about a pharma that's writing you $300 million
in checks?
Yeah.
Right.
So that's why Adam Curry and No Agenda, they can do what they do. They're user supported. They can say what they want to say. Their sponsor isn't going to get canceled. It's really, if you and I had, let's just think of a company out there that's advertising the podcasting space, any company, would we talk negatively about them in the show? Probably not.
Well, that's where, we've talked about that on this show before. In the early days of podcast advertising, that's exactly what the host did.
Right. They did.
They took a campaign and they trashed the advertiser.
They trashed the advertiser, yeah.
But they still took the check.
That's right. I know a check that went for 20. I had a single spot advertisement in a podcast, and it was like $25,000. And the podcaster laughed during the ad spot. It was a dating site, and he laughed about this dating site, and they got exactly zero conversions, but they wrote a check for 25, and they were thrilled.
Yeah, and it wasn't like it was a long-term view on this, right? It was like, I don't care because I hate this site. I'm going to take their money.
Right.
I'm going to trash them.
Right.
I'm going to cash the check, and he didn't care anyway because it was like, bye-bye.
But in essence, it was almost like radio because we adopted the radio model because someone in the chat earlier said that podcasters wear many hats. At the radio station, the GM sees the check come in from whatever company, the Acme Explosive Company, and tells the host, you're going to run this Acme Explosive Company Looney Tunes ad on your show. And the radio host says, no, I'm not. And the general manager says, you're fired. So what it was the podcaster was really thinking as the GM and say, yeah, we'll take the Acme Explosive Company Looney Tune ad, and we'll run that in the show, regardless of me as a podcaster thinking this is ridiculous. So
I
it was
don't
actually
care if they get ROI on it or not.
So it was actually the right.
I got the money,
right,
and I'm going to keep my relationship with my audience.
The only difference at a radio station is the DJ isn't going to bash the company.
Right.
He may say, "Hey, we got an interesting."
Well, yeah, just the very structure though of a radio station versus a podcast plays into that, right? Because the radio station has ad sales people, right? And that's where the things go off kilter a little bit on this. Is once you start getting ad sales people, guess what ad sales people care about? Long-term relationships with advertisers, right? So
they want that renewal on that IO,
right?
Insertion order for those of you that don't know what that is,
and that responsibility of the host of the show to keep their relationship with their audience because they're promoting things that are credible is one of the reasons why host reads have been successful in podcasting. So you can kind of see the connection of why things are the way they are in podcasting and why there's so much resistance to the radio model over in podcasting.
I remember when a certain sponsor's CEO, he either shot an elephant or he did something, went on an African safari. And
you're talking about GoDaddy?
Yeah. And, and of course, outrage across the United States, and the cancel culture wasn't in full effect yet because that happened today. He'd have been gone tomorrow, but he stayed with the company. And of course, then my audience is like, so I actually had to condone it on my show, condone what he did, thinking, man, they're going to cancel me now because so yeah. So they didn't cancel me. We're still partners, but I expressed my displeasure with his, what he had done, even though, that was his. He didn't shoot an endangered animal or anything like that, but the simple fact that there's reactions to big game hunters doesn't go good for some people,
Mhm.
But anyway, it just, yeah. And there was more than one of those types of incidents that happened in those early days. I'm glad they're under new management now.
Yeah, GoDaddy's really changed.
Oh yeah, yeah.
A lot of their brand orientations.
Yeah.
They used to be very.
Oh well, let's just put it this way: they didn't make the ladies very happy.
They didn't make ladies very happy.
No,
They obviously didn't view their customer base as female centric.
no, they did not.
But I think that's changed.
Oh, it's like 360%. They
right.
they
because a lot more women are using services like that too.
About the time Danica came on, of course, there was a few pretty crazy Super Bowl ads with her, but that thing changed very, very quickly, and it went corporate wide. So, as a matter of fact, I had meetings with them that were talking about.
Didn't they pick up a female CEO too?
I don't remember. I don't know, but I know that I actually had meetings with them on the cultural change of the company and what was happening, and they expressed that I get that message out. And I was basically like, okay, this is going to be a watch and see. Yeah. Because believe me, I had emailed them 500 times from response, because I forwarded every one of my audience members' concerns about some of their marketing stuff. And I had woman after woman after woman sending me emails saying, I want to support you, but I can't because of this. And I sent hundreds of those emails to GoDaddy and said, you're screwing me here. You guys need to get on board. And I'm sure they heard that just, from me and thousands of others in the public space making commentary about them. And times changed, and they changed. Fundamentally changed.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right.
So, and I don't think there's very many examples of companies that were publicly like that, how should I say it? Well, they were very publicly exposed based upon their Super Bowl commercials. Mm-hmm. And got a lot of attention in the wrong way. The geeky guys loved it, but that doesn't sell domain names or hosting accounts with women.
So I want to change the topic a little bit. There was an article that I saw that came out in Billboard.com talking about the streaming music platforms. And how what they've seen since about, I believe it is September, is basically a flat line of growth in streaming audio listening on the streaming music platforms. How people are the growth of streaming music has basically plateaued, and it's actually in a little bit of a decline right now. There's been peaks and valleys. So the lockdown, I guess, showed a pretty significant, this was back in March time frame. I'm not sure what the time frame is here, but there was a big dip in streaming listening, and then it grew back. And then just at the U.S. election, we saw another dip in people listening to streaming music, and then it started to grow again, and then now we're starting to see it drop again. But if you look at the overall trend line, it's pretty much flat. It's not growing. If anything, it's declining, and then it'll go back up to that flat line, and then it will fall again. But it's basically what it looks like over the last probably 4 to 5 months. It's basically flatlined. So
they think they're in trouble?
I don't know. And I don't know, as you look at that, whether that includes podcasting in these platforms, or if podcasting is seen as a contributor to the plateauing. Maybe their new growth is listening to spoken word audio. I don't know. They don't really conjecture in the article on what the cause is.
That would be encouraging.
Yeah.
But, and I got to stop saying that. That's becoming a keyword for me here. I think that the tendency is people who are never exposed to podcast once they become exposed to podcast, man, they usually get in with all feet. They're in for a penny. They're in for a pound.
Well, it's like we talked about a couple episodes ago about the super
listeners,
right?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
I don't know. I listened to, I had Pandora up last night for a little bit. I was just playing some 80s popular hits or something. I turned it off pretty quick because I was like, my God, some of this 80s music was horrible. And and trying to search for new artists and stuff like that. But I think I don't know. I don't listen to as much music as I did. I used to could name everybody. But since I've started podcasting, I listen to podcasts. Of course, we're both outliers too. So, there's a question here.
Thought I saw an ad in Pod News says apply to the sexiest job in podcasting.
And what is that?
It's a network called Pleasure Podcasts. Anyway, we can move on from
that. Harold says, do you know if there are any tags in podcasting that allows a system to tie in a donation tipping system into live podcasts and to add that type of interaction from the devoted niche audience? Now, there is a donation tag already, or Mike is listening, so maybe he can tell us which tag it is. There is a tag that allows you to tie your PayPal or Patreon link to that some of the apps support. But there is stuff going on in Podcasting 2.0 to expand that. But no, there's no such system in podcasting like in YouTube where they have super chat. I'd love, someone wants to build something and we can do live where there's a super chat function. Like if we were here on Facebook and there was a way for people to donate during the show. But the only people on YouTube that get super chat are those that have like 1 million listening hours or something or viewing hours of their content. So, YouTube really limits the number of people that get out, and they take my understanding is they take a huge cut of that super chat money.
Oh, yeah.
So, Harold, I think the key here is because even like this show today, we've got a dozen, maybe 15 people on live between all the platforms right now as I'm looking at it. The rest of the people that listen to the show listen to this show as a regular podcast. So what do we say on this show? Hey, there's a donation link in the show notes at newmediashow.com. And if you want to donate, there's the PayPal link. And periodically people have been generous and have donated to the show. We don't push it as a major thing here because that's not what this really show's about. So Rob and I are both getting salaries from our respective companies, and we like to, we're doing this show for a long time before. So for us, it's more about staying abreast and talking to you and talking to podcasters about what's going on in the podcasting space from our old curmudgeon experience.
Right. So Vox Media Studios, I think you know who those folks are out here on the East Coast. They're projecting that they're going to have $100 million in revenue from podcasting in 2021. 100 million in revenue.
How many shows they have?
I guess they're going to double the amount of shows that they're producing.
It's a big number.
It is a big number.
100 million with one company?
Yep.
Wow.
Let's see here if it gives.
We're in the wrong business.
It says here reportedly expected 300 million in overall 2020 revenue for Vox Media.
Wow. Huh. And they keep what percentage of that? And how much does the podcaster get? Go ahead.
I also remember this company way back in the early days of podcasting, saying that podcasting will never be anything significant. The same CEO, actually, that's quoted in this article, saying that podcasting will never be anything of significance. Yeah.
100 million. That's
just as they were canceling all the shows that they were doing back then.
It is funny to see how people have they're on round 3 or round 4, just like Audible. They're on what, round 4 at this time?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people don't realize that.
Yeah.
That, a lot of these big media companies have come and gone. It says right now, Vox Media Podcast Network, which produces over 200 podcasts annually, is what they're
200 episodes or 200 podcasts. That's
well, that people confuse that sometimes.
So 200 shows.
It says Vox Media now has more than 200 active podcasts that it publishes through Vox Podcast Network, up from 75 in January.
All right, so let's just do. And they say they're going to. Okay, so right now they say they're going to double. They're going to double the number of shows.
Yeah, so they now have more than 200 active podcasts.
All right, so
they're saying in 2021 they're going to double that, so that would be 400 shows.
Okay, so let's take one. How much was it? 100 million.
100 million in ad revenue.
All right, I'm going to divide that by 400 shows.
Their top podcast is Recode's Pivot with Kara Swisher and Scott Galloway. And that's their flagship show.
So that would mean that each of their shows, all 400 of them, on average, would have to have $20,833 of revenue every month. So the way I got to that was I took 100 million. Let's see if I got enough zeros here. Yep. Divide that by 400 and divide that by 12.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, $20,833 for every show every month.
Well, Todd, I mean, we have to acknowledge that the 80-20 rule applies here to some degree. Is that proportion?
Well,
equal,
yeah.
right?
So we're just looking at per average. So if that means 20,833, that's dollars. So let's divide that by. We'll give them the benefit of doubt. We'll give them a $30 CPM.
Mm-hmm.
That means that
that's not unreasonable. That's pretty conservative these days.
Means they have to get 694,000 downloads for every show every month.
On average.
Right. So 600. Okay. Attention in podcasting space. I call bullshit.
Which hosting platform are they hosting on? Would be my next question.
600.
So the brands that are under Vox Media are Polygon, Eater, SB Nation, and I guess they agreed to acquire New York Magazine in an all-stock transaction.
Do you know how hard it is for a single show to achieve 694,000 downloads every month? That means every show in their inventory has to be a 0.1% podcast.
Well, you know that's not possible, and I know you know that.
I know, I'm playing, but still,
playing the devil's advocate here.
Still, right. Even if we use the 80-20 rule, it seems like an extraordinary amount of money. If they're doing that, Rob, hey Vox, you looking for someone to?
Well, let's say we now have a system to manufacture massively successful podcasts, right? That's what it's saying, right? I mean, yeah. We've got the formula figured out, but the problem is I don't know that anybody really has got it figured out.
And if they're getting that kind of money, they will have a massive staff. They'll have 400 people working for that company.
Oh, yeah. It says here, Vox Media Studios signed a multi-million-dollar deal with Stitcher Yeah.
So they're
that
distributing.
tells you.
They're getting paid to distribute into Stitcher.
I'm assuming that Stitcher is probably doing the ad sales for them.
Oh,
And now that Stitcher is part of SiriusXM,
right.
they've got a little bit of a distribution relationship there as well.
Yet,
right?
okay, I'll be quiet. Hey Rob, they're really rocking it in the global consumption percentages. They're doing fantastic for independent podcasters.
Are now, huh?
They
okay.
are.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, they are about 0.2%, I think, something like that. So they're doing a fantastic job in getting podcasters exposure. I just don't know how that ramps up. If you think about some of the claims companies make, and then I'm looking at the stats, right? I'm looking at 55,000 shows, and I'm like, so that means that all their internal shows are absolutely explosive, but maybe these big media companies, they can do it.
Todd, did you hear about this new podcast hosting platform called Storyboard? They got $4.5 million in venture.
That's impressive.
Yeah. Palo Alto, California.
With no 4.5 million with no customers?
Yeah.
Storyboard.
Storyboard. Yeah.
That makes me worth about 400 million then.
Right. I mean, these VCs are investing in
dreams
and teams too.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, that's true.
And that's kind of. I was just trying to go see what was going on here, but I think it's interesting.
Well, I love that. We know the story on most. Okay, so someone start the clock. T minus 36 months.
Right.
So Storyboard, is that the company?
It's trystoryboard.com.
Oh.
TRY storyboard.com.
Well, they definitely aren't doing so well in their Google search.
Right.
Let's look at pricing.
They have looks like a iOS and Android app.
This is about. You sure this is the company? Because they don't list their prices. That's always scary. It says, send private storyboard codes to 50 users. This can't be the right company. It's used by Orbit, Braun, Delta, DHL. This can't be the right company. Oh, Storyboard named 2019's top private podcast app for companies. I've never heard of these folks. Yeah. Top private podcast app for companies?
They do have a pricing on here. It says they have a create a podcast, the platform. It says Storyboard is the go-to private podcast and audio platform for teams around the world, it says here.
Okay.
So it looks like that they have a listening app too. All-in-one production, two-way engagement, analytics, enterprise support. So there.
Well, they're doing private podcasting along with Podbean, along with Transistor, along with Blueberry.
Libsyn is doing that too.
So, making a claim that you're the biggest private podcasting platform, I have a pretty good indication who that is, and it's not Storyboard.
No, these guys are brand new. So
right.
I don't know how it could be.
Yeah. But hey, that's a good I'm going to put that on my platform. We are the world's largest private podcasting platform. I just put that on my website. No problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, I should do that.
Claims are cheap these days.
That's, you know what? And guess what? There's no one else out there doing podcasts like ours to call us out. So I guess I can just do it.
It's an indication of the times that we live in, Todd.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of morals anymore, I guess, or ethics or whatever.
Yeah.
You want to call it. It's war.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure what the word storyboard has to do with podcasting, but
Well, it's basically, let's see, what is Buy Pro? Up to 350 users. Oh, here, I can put the number of listeners. How many listeners will be invited? One. $10 per month? Oh, no. $1, $1 a month for listener. 350. That's a heavy seat price. $1 a seat.
wow.
Let me bring this up. This is what it costs to do a private podcast over there. For 100 listeners, it's $100 a month. That's $1 a seat. That's really high.
Wow. So you want to have 100 listeners on their Pro plan is $100 a month.
Huh?
What's the CPM? That's a pretty darn good CPM. So let me see. 1,000 listeners. Oh, contract sales. If you want to have 1,000 listeners.
Yeah, if you have 1,000 listeners, you contact them and probably get a discount of 10% to get 90 cents a seat. See, that's what it boils down to: is seat costs. How much the seat cost is the heavy multiplier in these plans. They're making. Wow, it's just crazy to me.
Well, that's probably why they got the 4.5 million VC, right?
Yeah,
profitable business model.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's $1
$1 a listener. That's what it costs to deliver private podcasting to them.
So if you get they will shift you into up to 300 listeners is $300.
Right. Anything above that, you can call for pricing.
Yeah. So if you go to 400 listeners, then you have to call them.
You go for enterprise.
Right.
So dollar person's pretty expensive.
And that's per month.
Right, per month. Yep.
Okay. Up to 50 users are free.
Yeah.
Okay. I can see what their model is.
Yep. Get to 51, then give me $51.
Right.
And apply your credit card because you can't go any further than that.
Right.
So this is, no different than what we've done and many others. We got a custom branded iPhone and Android app. We've got an app store listing for them if they want.
Mm-hmm.
But, here's the question. Where's their security discussion? Are these really podcasts or are these just streams? See, that's the thing people don't know.
Well, I think it's only available
on their app.
Their app.
You have to use their app.
Which is not a non-typical way of doing this. I mean, it's not like you can have a private podcast very well outside of your own app, right?
Well, to a certain security level, you can use outside your app, and then there's concerns, But
and how really concerned are you?
Right. That's the key, and that's
the key, right?
Yeah. When I'm talking to a bank about private podcasting, and when I'm talking to a podcaster about private podcasting, their security levels are at extreme different ends. The podcaster doesn't need much security, and the bank needs more security to the point where it's almost not a podcast anymore.
Todd, they claim in the release in the first year that they operated, they had over 1,700 companies around the world launch channels on Storyboard.
That's a pretty impressive number. If that's true, they might be the biggest.
Yeah. What was it about these folks that attracted?
Sometimes, who knows? Good marketing or good, who knows what they did? Because, it's kind of surprising. I haven't heard from them up till today.
Because I don't really think that they're a podcasting company.
No, they're not. Well, what's really happened is the private podcasting stuff has exploded since the pandemic.
Yeah.
So companies are looking for solutions for internal communication tools.
Right. And that gets back to what we've talked about on the show earlier. Well, what's the definition of a podcast these days?
Yeah.
I think it's getting stretched to lots of dimensions, and we've seen this happen in the past as well.
True.
I mean, we've been through even the phase where people were like, let's dump the word podcast.
Right.
been through that. We haven't heard that discussion. Podcasting is dead conversation in a while now.
Yep.
That was like popping up like every couple months in the past.
Yep.
So, yeah, I think we're past that now. Finally, Todd.
I think so too. So, yep. Rob,
yes,
we're almost done. Believe it or not,
we are again.
Yeah, almost the end. So, and I do have a hard stop, just because I've got to get on the road with my mom. But let's look here at the calendar. So today is December 19th, and I leave for Honolulu on the 23rd. I don't get back until the morning of the 28th. So we will have one show on the 30th.
Right.
And
it's Wednesday the 30th.
Wednesday the 30th. And then we'll go from there. But we'll be back with you again. Our next episode will be a lonely 11 days away.
Wow.
Yeah. So a lot's going to happen in 11 days.
Yeah.
So that's okay.
Maybe not.
Well, maybe not.
Because that's a pretty, that's a holiday cycle.
And we've been giving you 2 shows a week. And I think what I'd like to do, Rob, after the New Year is think about whether we want to continue with 2 shows a week. Just from a workload standpoint.
Right. Okay.
Our times are... What do you guys think? Do you like the 2? You tell us. Is 2 a week good? We're giving you 3 hours a week. Is it too much? Or do you want us, do you appreciate... Well, you tell us. This is what we need to know from you. Whether you think we should continue with 2 shows a week.
Well, Todd, and also, what do the numbers look like, too? I mean,
the numbers have been steady. About the same from what we talked about before.
So when we shifted from doing 1 episode a week to 2 episodes a week, whether that doubled our overall number, but not on a per episode basis.
Not on a per episode basis. Well, we've been climbing continuously. It's just like anything else, that slow march.
Right.
And,
okay.
But, I think we're 3 hours, that's asking people a lot. 3 hours is a lot of content from, 1 podcast a week.
Mm-hmm.
But, and if you guys are listening, that's cool. I'm glad you're here.
Well, and also, is the episodes too long?
Right.
Do we need to cut it back to an hour? And what do you think about guests, on the show too? I mean, historically, we've seen some of our lowest numbers in this show happen when we have guests.
Yeah.
Which is surprising when you think about it, but maybe it's not that surprising.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So, all right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being here. And please have a Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah.
Yeah.
And be careful. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. No, it's, have a terrific break here. You can listen to some other podcasts over the next 11 days.
We're breaking our own rules and not creating a whole bunch of podcasts during the holidays.
Yeah. But, and like I was saying earlier, there's certainly a lot of new podcasts about podcasting popping up.
Hey, that's what the homework assignment is. Go out there and listen to those shows and then come back to us and tell us what kind of information, so we can get some ground truth out there. Maybe we can start having a little fun and dispelling the latest podcast consultants and their expertise level.
Well, Todd, if you also, it'd be interesting to think about too, is if we go back to just 1 day a week, how would do we want to change the format of the show? Do we want to do something different, or, think about how we want to evolve the show going forward? Is there something different that we should be doing?
Rob, I'm a creature of habit. Long as I don't have to do any editing, I think.
I'm not saying editing. I'm saying what we do when we actually turn on our webcams.
I think
do we need to be more structured? Do we need to have like intro stuff? Do we need to
Rob, if you
get all fancy?
If you want me to be structured, please go find a new host. No, we're open to ideas. So, or do you just like the free? Do you guys come here because of the freewheeling conversation? You never know which way we're going. Those of you that are new, we may know one thing we're going to talk about during the show. But
I think we maybe come to some level of consensus just around the fact of what's in the news.
Right. Right.
over the last couple of days that was significant. Both of us think the same way in some ways on these things. But I mean, even our show name, Todd, is that appropriate anymore? I mean, how long is new media new?
Well, I don't think I don't think I can get mediashow.com. I bet you that one's gone. So
yeah, right. I'm sure we're not going to be able to get that, but and I mean, we've done years and years of, well, since we changed names, probably that was like what, four years ago.
But Rob, what media is new? There's no new media. Podcasting is still the newest media format.
Oh, that's true. That's true.
Well, if you consider TikTok a media format, they might be new, but they're TikTok. They're not.
Right. Yeah.
So
I guess as long as there's always some new media out there, we can talk about it, right?
There's
it's relevant.
It's not like there's going to be, what is the next media platform or media? I don't know if there is.
I think we're starting to see a little bit of derivatives of that. I mean, you look at TikTok, and you look at maybe these audio communities forming, like Clubhouse and those type of platforms are something a little bit unique. In some ways, they're not that unique, but these live has definitely come into its own.
Yeah, Craig says keep the show the same. I love it. David says, Happy holidays. Thanks, guys, so much. Value each time. We appreciate your guys' feedback on Facebook. We do. If there was other comments I may have missed earlier, I apologize, but I can see the last 4 in the view I'm in. So I do have to get out of here, Rob. So everyone, we'll see you later. And I'm Todd at blueberry.com, at Geek News on Twitter.
On Twitter, Rob Greenlee, at Rob Greenlee. So you can find me there. And if you want to send me an email, commentary, thoughts, whatever on the show or anything else, send it to robg@libsyn.com.
If you're on YouTube, subscribe. If you are on Facebook, go over to the New Media Show, wherever the link is on the website.
New Media Show.
And go subscribe to the podcast. I think it's over there in the corner of the website. Go subscribe. If you're on YouTube, you can go subscribe right here, I think. So we
go all over the place.
That's wherever the subscribe link is. Get subscribed. We want you to get hit that. I got to say this for the YouTube thing. We've never done this. Make sure you hit that notification bell too, so you know when we're live.
That's true.
That's right. So you get the ding. We're ding alongs going along. So we're so stupid. All right, everybody. Thanks so much for being here. We'll see you next time on the New Media Show. Take care. Happy holidays.
Bye.
Be safe.
Happy holidays.
Take care of your family. All right. Bye-bye.